Bible. Jacob did it when he thought his son Joseph was gone. Throughout the tradition, throughout the generations, Jews have been doing this, tearing their clothing or tearing a ribbon that is symbolic of their clothing. So the ribbon is actually self-tearing. You could do it from the bottom up. And of course you can help each other if you need. I'm going to ask you to repeat these words after me. Baruch, Atah, Adonai, Eloheinu, Melech, Haolam, Dayan, Ha'emet. It means, blessed are you, God, you're the true judge. I like to think of it as, God, we don't always know the ways in which you work. Your ways mystify us. You're a mystery, but we hold on to your traditions and your rituals at this time. I invite you now to tear the ribbon or help whoever is with you to tear the ribbon. So you could do it halfway up or a quarter of the way up, just as long as the tear. Yep. All right. You can be seated. If it's okay with you, as the person whoever is speaking, and I think it's just going to be me and Lizzie, could take off their masks when they're speaking if they wish. And then otherwise everybody keeps their masks on. Okay. Makes it a little bit easier. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking, a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Matthew's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. I invite you to join with me now, if you wish, the recitation of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. When Great Trees Fall, by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall, in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality bound to them takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period peace blooms, slowly, and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration, our senses restored, never to be the same. They whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. I know Lizzie wanted to share some words on behalf of family. Lizzie, I invite you to come on up.
My family and I reflected a lot on who Matthew was as a person and stories we thought could represent him. And while it's impossible to do such a big heart justice, we pulled together our thoughts as a family, and I just wanted to convey that this is from all of us. My brother Matthew is a fighter in every sense of the word. There was this invincibility about him as he battled and conquered everything that came his way. But that shouldn't come as a surprise, considering who his parents are and how they fought alongside him every step of the way. It's important for me to acknowledge, though, that Matthew's personality was so much bigger than any obstacle he ever faced. When you think of my brother, I want you to think of his overwhelming resilience, his immeasurable spirit, and of course, his sense of humor. One of my dad's favorite stories of Matthew involves sharing in his love of music. Except, my dad accidentally taught Matthew the unfortunate truth that not all music is good music. While sitting on the floor of his bedroom singing to him, Matthew scooted over with a concerned look in his eye and placed one finger over my dad's mouth. My dad quickly got the hint. Sometimes Matthew's sense of humor would also land him in trouble. Matthew loved noise, especially making noise himself. And when he learned that bumping his wheelchair into the emergency exit at his assisted nursing facility would set off an alarm, it quickly became one of his favorite pastimes. As my mom witnessed time and time again, Matthew had an ability to make friends regardless of the circumstances or any barriers communicating. When my brother was younger, he would take a Frisbee with him on the school van each morning and tap his fingers to it during the ride because he loved the sound it would make. It wasn't long before my mom ended up buying Frisbees for every other kid on the van because my brother had set such a cool trend. At age 32, when my brother transitioned from living at home to living in an assisted nursing facility, he was faced with many unique challenges, but making friends was not one of them. If he were ever missing from his room, he could be found down the hall, keeping his friend Susie company, or having a meal with his pal David. He was surrounded by residents who looked out for him, and he did the same. He was surrounded by staff, caretakers, who loved him, and he did the same. On a heavier note, a memory William and I have with Matthew, or should I say, without Matthew, was the first time we came home to a quiet house. That meant Matthew wasn't home. I know it sounds weird, but it was the first time we realized that not every house has a Matthew. Of course, we knew that our Matthew was the only Matthew, but we meant that not every family gets a member so full of life that their laughter and language fills every space between the walls. It was the first time we related silence to sadness. We felt very lucky for our Matthew. While we will always miss Matthew during these silent moments moving forward, I think it's important to remember why he fought so hard. Matthew fought because he loved life, and together, for him, we must fight to do the same through all of the noisy moments and the ones filled with silence.
Thank you, Lizzie. You paid your brother such beautiful tribute. I shared this poem when your dad died and at his funeral, and Lizzie, you had remembered it and wanted to share it in its entirety. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give to them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I have known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. On Hanukkah, we accentuate the theme of miracles. The special festival edition in our prayer books about miracles is Al Hanisim. It's recited as part of the Modim prayer, the Thanksgiving prayer. It's not enough to celebrate miracles, but Judaism says we are to express our gratitude for them, for the miracles. And that is why we are here today. Matthew David Stotter's ability to adjust, to adapt to the vicissitudes of life was a miracle, miraculous. He had a determination to live like no other. Life with Matthew was never dull. He was a ball of energy and excitement, always with a smile on his face, and you knew when Matt was in your presence. He filled the silence, as you spoke about, Lizzie. He filled it with a joyful noise and his steadfast attempts to make everyone laugh, including himself. He was a social being who loved sharing company with others, reaching out and connecting physically with the people important to him at home and in the residences where he lived later in his adult life. It wasn't uncommon for friends to seek him out, to share breakfast with him, to just check in on him. Most of all, Matthew's life was an inspiration. to his parents, Ellen and Bob, to his siblings, Will and Lizzie. Lizzie shared that Matthew is the reason both William and myself pursued helping professions. He taught us to be aware of the challenges other people may be facing, but to not view them as their challenges. He lit a fire under us all that we will never be put out. Sometimes the best teachings are not learned in books, but through the example of others. Matthew was truly that kind of teacher. He was the strongest person in the family and demonstrated that in every way. He was given the chance to thrive in the challenges of his circumstance due to the boundless kindnesses and support of you, Ellen, and of Bob. People don't thrive in challenging circumstances unless they have a great support network, a connection to their faith, a connection to their parents, their siblings. It's so much harder when you don't have that system, that wind at your back. The four of you were such an incredible support to him. You allowed Matthew to be Matthew. And that's the greatest gift any parent could give to their kids. It's just to allow them to animate themselves, to be who they are with their limitations and their capacities, whoever they are. And what you see today are Will and Lizzie, representative of that, and Matthew, who filled himself because you were there. Lizzie emphasized that the reason Matthew has always been able to love and live his life to the fullest is due to that unconditional love from our parents. Lizzie finished, the devotion and teamwork they always shared for him was incredible. The two of you divided and you conquered. Sometimes it meant that the five of you couldn't be together every single moment, but you made sure everybody was covered and taken care of. That was your role, the health and safety of your children and the ability for them to thrive. Ellen and Bob gave Matthew the will to live, the will to be who he needed to be. And as a result, as you shared with me, he was a whirling dervish of sorts throughout the years, wearing down the tread on his wheelchair and powering ahead like a speed demon. One of Matt's great joys was propelling himself and moving through the world at top speed. Almost like a marathon runner, I imagine. When Matt was in his zone, the endorphins kicked in, and he was on top of the world. It sounded amazing, kinetic, contagious, and also a little crazy. But your unconditional love for who he was pulled everyone through. This was the person who inspired the people in his life, who will continue to love him. That's you, as he enters the world to come. Matthew's various health conditions and disabilities never slowed him down. And his memory will propel us to continue to show gratitude for having him in this world, in your world, in our world, for the miracle of his life and for his candle that burned so very bright. You are all forever changed because he lived, and for the better. For these final days of Hanukkah, may we remember Matthew for blessing. Let us give thanks for his illuminated soul, and let us say, Amen. For those who are here and perhaps those who are joining us by Streamcast, I don't know if there's folks who are joining us, but if there are, we invite everyone, as they are able to rise, for the chanting of El Malei Rachamim, the memorial blessing, the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Bemalot Kedoshim Mutorim, Kezoar Rakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Shmuel Eliyahu ben Yaakov ve'Elisheva shalach leolamo began Eden tehei menuchato. Ana bala rachamim hastirehu beseter kenafecha leolamim utzror bitzror achayim et nishmato Adonai unachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of Matthew David Stotter, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Our beloved Matthew is survived by his mom, Ellen, and of course, his devoted brother, William and Morgan, Elizabeth and Adam, and his loving uncle, too, Radin, and cherished grandson of Mathilde and the late Walter Kretsch, and the late Marjorie and Roland Stotter, and of course, his father, the late Robert Hart Stotter. I know a family had asked me to just share a message. This is specifically to those who are joining us by Streamcast regarding Shiva. In addition to the service, of course, we're moving to the graveside. Our family will be, this is from Lizzie, our family will be observing Shiva on Tuesday, December 15th, and Wednesday, December 16th, between the hours of 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The preference is to make phone calls during this time and cherish personal conversations, so we are able to have that in lieu of visitation. Please reach out to Lizzie or William if you are available any time for a phone call during these hours. Again, the hours are the 15th and 16th, today and tomorrow, between the hours of 5 and 8 p.m. That is Eastern Time. If you are available at these hours, or if there's a specific time that works better for you, please be in touch with Lizzie or William. They would be more than moved to speak with you. Thank you.